Hey everybody, this is Colin G. Murphy and welcome to Colin Podcasting About Real Estate Show 50. Nice round number. Hope you guys are doing great. I'm busy as usual in Tampa, Florida. I think I've got 8 real estate deals on the go at the moment, 6 land under contract and a couple of more land in the pipeline. And I've also started promoting some of the land that I have under contract. So I'm dealing with those inquiries. I'm helping a few friends sell some properties and some land, ironically enough, as well. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on. The market is super busy. I listed one for sale last week at 185 and was bombarded with offers over 3 days. Ended up accepting one at 195, and literally shortly afterwards someone else offered me 210 with no inspection contingency. So the market is just very busy, and I just listed another one today for 220, and that would be a great deal if I'm able to get 220 or something close to it. It was a pretty light touch renovation. It needed a roof and AC and some landscaping, but the inside of the house I didn't do a whole lot other than paint and baseboards and fans and some minor updates in the bathrooms, and not a whole lot that I did, to be honest with you, but I think I got it at a great price and I should make a nice profit on it, touch wood. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, I'm enjoying the work at the minute. I'm enjoying the market. A lot of stuff going on. But I like what I do. I certainly don't kill myself. If anybody thinks I'm a workaholic, I guarantee you that I'm not. I generally clock off at on or before 6 o'clock most days, and don't really work weekends unless something very important going on. I'm fortunate to have a lot of great people helping me out, keeping all these different projects in motion. So always happy to talk about that as well, and happy to talk about the systems and processes I use. Just go to colinvestments.com and schedule a call if you'd like to learn a little bit more about those. But in the meantime, back to the show. We've got quite an inspiring guest on today. Her name is Daisy Serrano, originally from California, but recently moved to Austin, Texas, and quit her job to do that, and moved there with her husband Luke to grow and scale a multifamily investment business. So she started out investing passively to learn the ropes and see how that goes and earn some passive income, and then just started doing it herself, researching her own deals, putting her own team together, networking with other people who can invest in her business and invest in her projects. And really interesting story. Just goes to show how much you can get done if you put your mind to it. I mean, Daisy did not come from a real estate background. She really only started taking it very seriously about 3 or 4 years ago. But since then, herself and her husband are doing a lot of nights and weekends researching it, and didn't quit her job until she really had a massive amount of work done. And so kind of in addition to doing a deep dive into how the multifamily space works, both from a kind of passive and active investor point of view, as one is you're just giving someone else money and watching what they do, another one is you're the one responsible for making the project work. But aside from that, we also had a good conversation just about Daisy's general kind of passions and motivations about raising awareness, particularly among women and millennials, on all the life-changing opportunities that are out there for anybody willing to put in the work and anybody that puts a plan together. And we just kind of speak about that, about mentoring, about motivation, and just her general goals for building a business that'll help her parents retire early. That's a big motivation for her. And just an interesting lady and a great story, and I think you'll enjoy it. So that's enough of me rambling along. Let's head on over and see what Daisy Serrano has to say. Daisy Serrano, how are you doing? And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Colin. I'm doing amazing. It's, a beautiful day in a beautiful city, so can't complain.
That's right. You're in sunny Austin, Texas. I'm in sunny Tampa, Florida, and we cannot complain. That is true. So tell us a bit about yourself, Daisy. Where did you grow up? Did you come from an entrepreneurial family?
Yeah, not at all. So I grew up in Southern California. My parents are both from Mexico, immigrated to the United States in search of the American dream, like so many, and grew up, in a predominantly Mexican community, speaking Spanish only until I was in 4th grade. And really, a lot of values, a lot of family values, a lot of community values, and just foundational, right, in terms of my life. And, I decided to leave the small town and, go off to college and figure out what I wanted to be for the rest of my life. And at the time, I studied criminology. I thought I wanted to work in the juvenile detention centers, and quickly
Oh.
realized it wasn't the right fit for my personality.
Mm.
I wanted to do so much more and take the kids home and adopt them. And, there was a certain barrier, right, that I encountered very early on in my career. And so I shifted. I went into the international education space, and I was in that
Mm-hmm.
space for about 10 years, working with clients and students from all over the world that were here in the United States. Worked most recently for the Consulate of Kuwait in Los Angeles,
Oh.
where we were living. And as of a few months ago, my husband and I decided, Luke, that we wanted to move. Right, we'd been investing in multifamily for about 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and just really enjoyed the cash flow, right, the distributions, and saw the power of multifamily. And so we decided that we wanted to be general partners ourselves. So we created a podcast, right? Brought in amazing guests like you do as well. Just learned and networked, and got to know people in the industry, and really created our own community right in the space with everybody that we were meeting, and decided we were going to move to Texas, right? We were going to move to our market and just be boots on the ground,
And this is
be
just a
very
few months
active.
ago that you moved to Texas?
Yeah, it's been what, 4 or 5 months at this point, so
Oh,
still
wow.
pretty new in Austin. And
And is this from like a small place in Los Angeles to a big place in Texas? Nice
no,
COVID-friendly place to stay?
yeah, it was actually quite the opposite. We were living right in downtown LA,
Mm-hmm.
before moving out here, and now we're in the northern area of Austin. So it was nice. We were ready to leave the big city, and especially through
Yeah.
COVID, right? It was really hard to get out and just walk and find green spaces to be in. So now, we're in this beautiful greenery mountain right here in Austin, and yeah, just enjoying the change, and of course hitting the ground running here. So we started a meetup here. We closed on
Awesome.
a 42 unit a couple of weeks ago, and have our podcast going, and just looking now for the next multifamily acquisition. So
That's very
lots
cool.
going on, and I was able to leave my W-2, so that was really exciting. Now coming out here, so
Uh-huh.
just a lot of changes for sure, but very, very positive things.
So where do you think your interest and passion for real estate originally come from? Did you have any kind of family members to look up to that own real estate, or did it come from somewhere else entirely?
Yeah, it was someone else entirely. Nobody in my family had ever invested or even thought that they could, right, in a multi-million dollar syndication. But it was really through my husband. We were dating at the time, and he introduced me to Rich Dad Poor Dad, and the
Mm.
concept of real estate. And I wasn't interested, Colin. I was bored by the numbers. It just seemed so many spreadsheets, and so much data
Yeah.
to look at, right? I am very people oriented, so I'd much rather be out talking to people and interacting. And so it wasn't quite for me. And really, it was, I started getting exposed to it more and more through him. Going to
Mm-hmm.
meetups, I found my tribe, I call it, right? An organization of women that, were in real estate. And just the more I learned, the more I realized what I wanted to accomplish in life, to be able to help retire my parents, to
Mm.
create more access for my Latino community, all of these things that mattered a lot to me, I wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to accomplish in education, unfortunately, because of the pay gap, right? And
Yeah.
so I found in real estate and multifamily a community, right? A very strong community at that, and the
Mhm.
opportunity to be able to do those things for my family.
Yeah, that's a great goal and that's a great motivation to get you through all those boring spreadsheets as well as the nice people and also the annoying people you need. You need that resilience to get through it
Totally.
all. So what was your first deal? I mean, did you dabble in a single family originally, or did you and your husband just do some passive investing to figure out how it worked as a bystander?
Yeah, it was definitely the latter. We skipped the single family space altogether,
Mm-hmm.
and we invested passively in 445 units across two different assets here in San Antonio, Texas. And
Mm-hmm.
really, we wanted to put our money to work, right? To be able to get a better investment, a better return, I should say, through real estate versus the other options that we had available at the time. Our retirement accounts, and stocks, and we really wanted to take it into our own hands and invest into something that we understood, right? So we just started learning more about multifamily and, found a sponsorship group that we really liked. We flew out to the market. We were in California at the time. We flew out here, looked at the property, Secret Shop did, looked at the submarket, right, where it was located, the neighborhood, talked to the neighbors, talked to people that were there. And once we were comfortable with the sponsor, the market, what we were seeing in Texas, generally speaking, then we ended up just moving forward and investing. So we invested in our first syndication, and a few months after that, ended up investing in the second. And yeah, through that, just saw the power of distributions and decided we wanted to be general
What was
partners
this,
and
like
acquire.
quarterly distributions, or how long ago was that you did your first kind of passive investment?
The first one was 3 years ago, about three
Mm-hmm.
years ago, and it's quarterly distributions, right? So at the beginning, there were 1 or 2 quarters where they didn't have distributions as they were stabilizing the property, and it's
Yeah.
been, regular ever since, except where for at the very beginning of COVID, Q2 of 2020,
20.
there was
Mm-hmm.
one quarter where they stopped distributions, they paused them to be able to have capital at hand when there was so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
But other than
Prudent.
that, it's been consistent ever since.
And what is their what's their plan for these, the one you're invested in passively? What's your exit plan, or what's their exit plan for you to get your money back? Are they going to do a refi in 5 years? Are they hoping to sell it on, or do you know what they're planning, or what
Yeah,
did they push?
the goal is to sell within 3 to 5 years, really
Mm-hmm.
dependent on the market, right? So, we're coming up on right around the 3 years for one of them.
Okay.
So, we're just waiting at this point to hear back in terms of what what the timeline is, but we continue getting distributions. So haven't really raised a flag or checked in on next step as of now, since it's, they're executing the business plan as planned.
And if they're selling it at a nice profit, presumably what percentage of the profit are they giving to the passive investors? Is there like a cap that they take a certain amount above a 20% profit, or do you remember how it works out for those deals?
That's a great question. I don't remember that detail specifically. It was
Mm-hmm.
a few years back when we
True.
dug into it, but that's definitely something to look into. I know that there have been the quarterly distributions are 8% year over year, the
Nice.
cash on cash, and
Mm-hmm.
then the bigger catch up, right, will be at the end. So there will be a bigger capital, right,
Mm-hmm.
once it sells, but I would have to get back to you on the details of that one. It's been a few
No,
years.
it's fair enough. I can't remember that stuff from 3 years ago either, but I'm just curious as to how people are structuring it. So so you've done two and passively, and I guess you get to see all the documents and how it's structured, and you get to see a little bit about how the sausage is made, but not that much as a passive partner. So what made you decide to try and do it on your own? Talk us through that story, because there's a big difference in sending $50,000 to this experienced company, and then trying to find your own deal and get your own investors involved.
Yeah, it totally is. And, part of it was when we invested for the first deal, it was also the first deal for this group, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
we were investing in them as a team. And we saw, right, the power of having very strong boots on the ground, having a very good team, having good communication with investors and just being able to develop that relationship with them, learning more about the process. And so we wanted to be able to take our life and our families, life into our own hands. And with that, really saw within the multifamily real estate space an opportunity for me to transition out of my W-2, which, now we have been able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, once we start having children in the next couple of years, then, we're able to have the time to spend with them. And I don't have to go back to a W-2 job, and I'm able to, spend time with my family, and we're able to travel back to California to do that. And so it was really sort of reverse engineered, right? How the kind of
Okay.
life that we wanted to have. And then within that space, then saw how multifamily being on the general partnership side would give us an opportunity to do that. So right now it's been a little crazy. We work really long hours and there's a lot
Sure.
going on with building the business. But once the kids come, God willing, in the near future, then we'll be able to reap the benefits, right, of all those things that we're doing right now.
Yeah, so I like it. So it's kind of work frantically for a few years, get those assets stabilized and up and running, and get the investors in your pocket, and waiting for more deals, and then yeah, maybe slow from sixth gear into third gear or something. But
Yeah, exactly.
so what does that look like so far? When did you start? When did you take the decision to become a general partner, and then from there, can you talk us through the steps about deciding what kind of deal you want, finding the deal, finding the money?
Yeah, so we decided that we wanted to be general partners about a year and a half ago. And within about a year, we decided we wanted to move to Texas. And so with that, my husband started, applying for positions out here and, starting that planning process. And then COVID happened, right around that time. He'd actually been offered a position right before COVID and it didn't end up working out. So looking back, everything for a reason, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the right time for us to be able to move out here. But the beauty of it is that with COVID, with both of us still having our W-2s and working from home, we
Mm.
ended up launching our own podcast, right? It's called Make It Rain. And it's really focused on creating more access for millennials because what we realized is that there aren't as many people that look like us that are young that are investing. And so we wanted to be able to provide more education and access for people, whether they invest with us or not, that's beyond the point, right? But it's
Yes.
just for people to know that this is an opportunity that's available, that you don't have to have millions of dollars in the bank to be able to invest, right? And
Hmm.
you don't have to have, your family come from money to be able to invest, because we certainly didn't.
Yep.
And so with that, we launched the podcast and, that was about a year ago. We just hit the 1 year mark on that end.
Hmm.
And just started, networking. The beauty of COVID for us in our personal life was that there was so much online community. There were
Yeah.
so many virtual events. And so we connected with people that we wouldn't have ever connected otherwise, right? If
Hmm.
everything was still in person. So we built those strong relationships virtually, right, on Zoom calls and phone calls and texting. And once we got married, we actually ended up coming out here to Texas in October of 2020. And we called it our business moon, where we just met with a bunch of people. We had about almost 20 meetings. We had 19 meetings and 3 tours in
Business
a
moon instead
week.
of honeymoon. Okay.
Yeah, we called it our business moon, right?
Cool.
And we knew that we wanted to move here, and so it was like, okay, now we need to build that community and those
Hmm.
relationships. So just connected with so many people, and had wonderful conversations. And by the time we moved, we already knew people, right? Because we'd put in that effort. We flew out here, we met with them in person, and it's just grown from there.
Fantastic. So I can see how that's a fantastic way of building up a network of enthusiastic millennial, people who'd love to invest with like-minded people. So did you were able to build up obviously number one, you're helping a big group of people to open their mindset and explore possibilities. Number two, a small amount of those might say, yeah, hey Daisy, I've got, X amount of dollars I'd love to put it to work with you. So is did you do that first and then look for the deals, or were you doing both in parallel?
We were doing both in parallel. And what we realized is that living in California, not having, an active, strong boots on the ground presence, it was hard
Mm.
to build that relationship with brokers and to build rapport and to, maintain, right, that consistency that's so crucial in the space. And so yeah, it was really once we came out that we got out and toured properties and met with brokers and did all of that. But in the meantime, we were receiving deals, right? Where we were on different broker lists. So we were practicing our underwriting and we were,
Yeah.
looking at the numbers and talking to people in the market and building our team and working on all of those different pieces. So by the time we got here, we were familiar with those rules of thumb in the market, right? We had established some relationships here. And so this opportunity for the 42 unit came from a partnership. It was a group that's here, that's local to Austin. And they approached us about a co-sponsorship, us being part of the general partnership group with them. And so yeah, that's really how it came about. But it was over a year of building that relationship, meeting on Instagram, similar to you, funny enough, and being on their podcast. They were on our podcast, and eventually it became this relationship, right? But it didn't start there. It just started with a conversation and getting to know more about each other.
I like 42 is a nice kind of digestible size for a first multifamily. It's obviously still a lot of moving parts, but can you tell us a little bit more about it? What kind of property types and location and price range?
Yeah, of course. It's a C plus property in an area here in northern Austin.
Okay.
And the area is booming and growing, right? So if you're
Mm.
familiar, I'm sure with, Austin, it's the number one commercial real estate city in the States right now. So a lot of
Wow.
growth. Elon Musk has moved into town. There's a lot of other
Hmm.
companies that are moving in. There's a very high tech industry, right? That's here, that's local. And so this
Hmm.
property is in northern Austin, which is where it is very tech heavy
Okay.
in that sub specific area. So the number one demand for apartments there is one bedrooms, and this 42 unit, 39 of those are one beds. So our strategy, our business strategy coming in is to come in and renovate all of those one bedrooms,
Okay.
improve the outside, right, in
Are they
terms of
vacant? Are they all vacant?
not all of them. It's right now we're at 91.5% in terms of the occupancy. So there are
Okay.
units to where we can come in immediately, start to turn them,
Uh-huh.
and that will actually start next week, the construction management piece. And then as leases expire, then we'll give the option to move into a renovated unit to be able to turn some of the other units as well.
So what's your average rent in the occupied units and what do you hope to get once it's been renovated?
Yeah, right now it's south of 1,000. So the bump is 150 to 200 to be able to bring it up to market
Hmm.
right now in that specific area. So that'll come as we start to turn the units. And we're going to do two different models to just sort of test out the market and see which one, is better for residents and go from there. So have a couple options just to be able to familiarize ourselves more so. But there's a property right next door that's already proven that business plan. They came in, they renovated, and really did a value add piece on all of their one bedrooms. And that property is performing extremely well. So we found something that was working, and we said, hey, if it's working, right, why rethink the whole
Oh
process?
yeah, yeah. If you can find a similar property type and someone else is a year ahead of you, then yes, you'd be yeah, absolutely. So, Are you able to share what's the purchase price? What was the purchase price, and what's
Yeah,
your
it was
overall renovation
4.7.
budget?
Yeah, I
Hmm?
was south of 5 million. I believe it was at 4.7, and it was 111 per door was the purchase price.
Okay,
And then yeah, the capex budget coming in is to be able to come in and really focusing, as I mentioned, on those one bedrooms, and turning some of those units. So 8 to 10 grand per door.
okay,
Ish is what we're looking at right now, and depending on the type of finishes and all of that.
okay. So maybe 5 million to buy it, and you're thinking maybe 350, 400 to fix them up over an extended period of time as all those individual leases expire.
Yeah, we're actually
Yeah,
looking at about a 24-month period to be able to turn them because it
yeah.
is I'm sorry, it's not agency debt, it's a bridge loan. And we're looking to transition it into agency debt within about 24 months.
And can you explain to us for people that don't understand, what is a bridge loan and what is a transition to agency debt mean?
Yes, of course. So in simple terms, agency debt is very similar to hard money, right? If you're in the single family space. And so it's coming in, maybe the interest is a little bit higher. The terms are, a little bit more stringent coming in, but you're getting, the money, the capital up front. And you're also building in the renovation for the most part, right? And eventually within that 24-month period, then the goal is for us to transition it into agency, which is government sponsored, right, debt, where essentially it's just to be able to get the best terms, the longest terms as well. So best terms in terms of the rate, right, and what your your interest rate is, but also in terms of the length of the term. So looking really shooting at 30-year amortized.
Okay, yeah, big difference. And so what percentage of the purchase and renovation um, price are you getting from that bridge loan?
That's a great question. I don't have that off the top of my head,
Okay.
because I wasn't focused on that part specifically in terms of
Yeah, fair
the
enough. But I
lending.
guess that's one, maybe that's 60%, and then the remainder is going to be raised by the investors, right? All these millennials and your partners investors, right?
Yes, correct. And it's not just millennials, right? We definitely cater to millennials and, in terms of creating more access. But
Oh,
yeah, we
whoever
have
wants to
a wide
participate, right?
range. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. We don't leave anybody out. So yeah, it's a wide range of investors, and there's a few different groups that are involved. And so, it was really that combination, right, of everybody coming together for the capital raise, for the management piece, and for, the renovations going forward.
And do you have a minimum? Is there a minimum amount people need to invest if they want to participate in that deal?
For this one, it was 50,000. And that's
Hmm.
usually the norm. Anywhere from 25 to 50 is usually pretty average. If
Okay.
you have a sponsor that's, very seasoned, then a lot of times you'll start to see that minimum go up to about 100. But for the most part,
True.
25 to 50 is pretty typical to get started in the multifamily syndication.
Okay, so yeah, that sounds like a very busy project. I mean, when do you think, or maybe you already are, when are you going to be looking at the second deal? And do you have any idea how many units you want to go for next?
Yeah, we're already looking for the next one. So right now, just really targeting off-market deals is really where, it makes more sense. Just a lot of things that are on market are overpriced is what we're seeing. And so
Hmm. Yeah,
just
I bet.
working on building those relationships, right, to get the off market. But yeah, we're working on that already, and underwriting, submitting LOIs, and hoping to have another one here by before the end of the year. So
That's
coming
awesome. And
soon.
so, how do people find off-market deals? What kind of relationships do you need to build? Are you doing, do you have somebody doing fancy data analysis to find out all these mom and pop owners and, get in touch with them?
Yeah, it really depends. The two strategies that we're looking at are off-market deals with brokers, right? So before they go and prepare the offering memorandum and send all the information out and blast it, to be able to get some of those deals that have already come through a broker but haven't been marketed to everybody else. That's one strategy that we're working on right now, and that really comes with just getting to know brokers more so, right, on a
Yeah.
personal level. And then the other strategy is going directly to the sellers, right. So what you mentioned is more so reaching out, getting different lists, right, and
Hmm.
calling, right, calling the owners, calling the owners reps, and just trying to get a feel for if they're interested in selling, if so, what that might look like. And there's a colleague who I was speaking to actually just yesterday that is closing right now on a property in Arizona. And I asked her exactly that, right? How did she find the deal? And she said that
Mm.
she'd been following up with the broker I'm sorry, with the seller, with the owner for a year and a half. So it's just consistency, right? Sometimes it'll happen quickly, sometimes it won't, but it's just continuing to have those conversations.
Yeah, and I guess it's very much a relationship and a networking mindset, and it's yeah very very difficult at the beginning, I imagine, and then once you get a couple of hundred units, then people start throwing nice deals into your lap. But that certainly doesn't happen by chance, right?
Right, right.
So what does your team look like now? I mean, because it is amazing what a very small team can accomplish in the kind of small multifamily space. You don't need a big team of 15 or 20 people to be underwriting these deals. What's your team look like in terms of the research for the next deal and getting the first deal up and running?
For the next deal, it's we're a husband and wife team. So my husband Luke and I are part of Make It Rain Capital, and with that, he really focuses more on the underwriting. He has an engineering background, engineering construction background, and so he loves the
Nice.
data, loves digging into the numbers.
Hmm.
And then between both of us, I would say tag a lot of the other parts of the industry of our business. So with that, the marketing piece, right, which is huge, we both tag team that end. going out and doing property tours and meeting one-on-one with brokers. I do that because now I have the time to be able to just get out. Right, today I went and visited two different properties. One was
Oh,
the one that we closed on a couple of weeks back, and the other one is an off-market deal that we're looking at right now. And so just having that availability, right, to be able to get out there is huge. And then we're part of a few different groups as well. So with that, we send our underwriting and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or give some feedback on X, Y, and Z. And so, working with other people that are one, either going through the process also and looking to close their first deal or their second deal, or going through, people that have done it already and can give very very specific feedback on that. So it's a combination, right? It's doing the first walkthrough ourselves. If something fits certain criteria, minimum criteria, then we'll bring it on to our colleagues and to other people that we're looking to potentially partner with in the future.
I love it. I mean, it's just we take it for granted, because we're in full-time real estate, but you'll appreciate it more maybe because you were in a W-2 until recently, just how nice it is to have that freedom to say, okay, I'm going to check out our current deal at 9 o'clock, and then at 11 o'clock, I'm going to meet so and so to look at a new deal. It's
Mm-hmm.
That's something that most people can't do, right? Because they just have other obligations to another employer.
Yes, it's definitely life changing, right? And I think it helps set you apart as well because, it's on social media, right? You're constantly talking to people about it, and then they see that you're actually putting in the work as well, right? You're not just,
Hmm.
putting out certain posts, but you're also getting out into the market and, meeting with brokers, and there's so much that goes into it, right? And all of these different pieces of the puzzle have to align. You have to have your team, you have to have property management, you have to have your lender. And so just the more you can do before you have a deal active, the better, because you're not going to have a lot of time to figure out all those things once a deal comes. It moves pretty quickly after that, as you know.
Yeah, I bet a good deal doesn't sit in the shelf for very long. And I want to pivot a little bit. Let's talk about mindset because there's so many people out there, and probably a lot of people that are listening to this show that love the idea of, oh, I'd love to just quit my job and go into real estate, full time. And that requires quite a big shift in mindset. Never mind all the rest of it, planning and cash flow and how you're going to pay your bills and all the rest of it. How did you work your way through that? Was it very difficult for you to leave your job, or was there something that happened that gave you that kind of mindset that just made it easier for you?
Yeah, for us, when the time came to move and to transition out of my W-2, it was a very easy process. But that I have to say was because we'd been planning it for a year and a half, right? So for a year and a half, we started the podcast, we decided we wanted to move. All of our time, our free time essentially, was dedicated to real estate, right? On the weekend, on weekday mornings, on weekday evenings after work. It was so much focused on moving in this direction, right, where we wanted to be and where we wanted our family to be in the future. And so even my employer, right, they knew that I was going to move to Texas, and this is what was happening. And so I was very open and upfront with them because I wanted to help my transition out of the company to be as smooth as possible. And so when the time came, it was just a matter of finding my husband, finding the right W-2 opportunity here in Austin. And once that happened, then everything else fell into place very easily. We were able to spend the holidays with our family, and on December 26th, we ended up driving out, making that 2-day trip out from California to Texas.
That's very cool because certainly the lifestyle of most kind of young people, without kids, isn't kind of doing real estate every evening and every weekend and hopping in cars and studying spreadsheets. And there's a lot of other fun stuff you can do in your 20s, right? That isn't that. I mean, what is it that gives you? Why do you think you guys are wired differently? What is it that motivates you to do that when it's very easy to just close the laptop and go to a local gastro bar or stick on a Netflix show?
Yeah, I think going through that phase and enjoying it, right? In our 20s, we were in college, we had fun, we traveled, we did all of these different things. And so I think once we got into our early 30s and, we're looking to establish, our family and build a family together, then it was much more long-term thinking, right? About what can we do now to be able to live that later on. And for me, my husband was a big influence, right? I never considered having my own business. I didn't know anybody in my family that had their own business or would even consider, right, the possibility. And it was really, once we started dating and, he talked a lot about, the future and building a business and investing. And so I started just being introduced to, to the concept and to what it was. And from there we ended up building our lives around it. But it was in terms of that mental shift, it was just
Mm.
by exposure, right? By seeing it with him. His dad had built businesses when he was young. His parents had a couple single family homes, and so he already knew and wanted that for himself. And it was through him that I was exposed to it. And then for all to not make it longer, just bought into this idea of, oh, we can choose to have a certain kind of life. Like we don't have to stick to, the W-2 9 to 5 that everybody else follows.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree with you. And you're right, people work so hard in their W-2s all their lives, and if they put that same energy into working, into designing their own life and their own long-term plan, they could get, 10 times as much achieved with roughly the same amount of hours dedicated. And even the hours you are working are generally a lot more enjoyable if you're working towards your own personal goals and your own personal whys, right?
Yes, totally. And you talk about this all the time, right? Because you talk about being intentional investors and, how many properties does it look like, right? To be able to reach that point. I believe, you talk about 3 to 10, right? Properties to be able to live an intentional life on that end. And, it's just living life with intentionality. I think everything else follows, right? If you're intentional, and of course you're putting in the work, because you can't just sit back and wait for it to happen, of course.
No, you're right. And I was even listening to, I think it was a Jerry Seinfeld podcast on Tim Ferriss, and his like, what's your words of advice? And his was a two-word answer, just work. And you do have to put in the work. Real estate isn't this kind of thing you can just do 6 hours a week and earn $500,000. It unfortunately doesn't work like that, folks. Maybe you can do the hard work for 20 years and then you can do your 5 hours a week after that. I guess that's certainly doable. I'm curious, did you or your husband have a specific mentor, someone that was kind of encouraging you and nudging you along the path that you find yourself in?
No official mentor. I mean, a lot of our mentors, I would say, are people that we heard on podcasts and, books that we read and, people that we ended up meeting along the way, that helped guide us, in one way or another. But we weren't part of any like mentorship program or, anything that was very, I would say, design based around that end. We just surrounded ourselves with a ton of amazing people, and now just use those different people as mentors and resources, right? Where maybe we have a question about property management, so we'll reach out to this one friend that is an expert and has done it for 30 years. And so just building that network, I would say, has been our mentorship, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. How about the flip side of that? Do you mentor people now? I know you're involved in, women's real estate networks and real estate association of Latin professionals. I mean, can you talk to us a little bit about that and what you're able to give back?
Yeah, of course. For me, community is really, really important. And I think being able to give back in one capacity or another has always been part of my life. And, whether it was when I was younger, in college and, mentored younger kids and high school kids, or, when I was in the international education space, right, doing conversation, language practices with international students. It's always been a part of my life in one way or another. Um, And so now within, real estate and the space that I'm in, there's been so many organizations that have poured into me and have, given me an opportunity, right? Starting with the Women's Real Estate Network, for example, which was the first one that I joined when I was still in LA. And so now it's, giving back, right? So volunteering, I started volunteering for a few different organizations, and, within that space, and was given the opportunity to, have a much more active role beyond the volunteer position, to be able to help. And so whether it's, through an organization, giving and volunteering and giving back, or through somebody that we meet, right? There's somebody that reached out from the podcast that had heard us and, had been a listener for a while. And now we've, really taken it upon ourselves, right? To be able to help guide her and introduce her to different people and, check in and be a resource, right? Because there's been so many that have helped us. And so we want to be able to help others as well in that capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And I agree. You generally it's very enjoyable to help people. I mean, if you can switch that mindset to being helpful to people, the gratitude you receive is fantastic. And it makes the whatever effort it took worthwhile to know that
Mm-hmm.
you made a difference to someone who appreciates it. That's, people should try it more often. I mean, people tend to think that business is just, a zero-sum game. Either I'm grabbing this deal or someone else is
Yeah.
grabbing this deal, and I'm not letting you know how I underwrite deals just in case it makes you better at underwriting deals. It's generally easier just to be open about stuff.
Yes, totally. And we meet newer syndicators all the time as well. And they'll ask, what program are you using? And we'll send them the program, we'll send them the book that we used, to get started. And I think it's such an abundance mindset mentality within the community that, so many
Mm-hmm.
people helped us. And so now it's not competitive, right? There's enough out there for everybody. And so it's, the more I can help other people, the more it will come back to me tenfold in the future.
That's very cool. And so, just one or two more questions, and it will wrap up. But I've really enjoyed this, so far, Daisy. So, let's try and get action. What kind of actionable tips do you have for any kind of listeners to overcome the kind of doubts and challenges that might be preventing them from taking those decisions to change their life through real estate?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Colin. I would say take action, right? Do something today, whether it's, listening to a podcast, right? Picking
Mm-hmm.
up a book and learning in that capacity. For me, I'll speak from my own experience. What made the biggest difference was getting out there in meetups and in-person meetups, because
Mm-hmm.
it all, I had learned about it. I had done the podcast, read the books, but until I was out there, it felt very distant, right? It felt like I'm here and it's those people, right? Or other people that are doing it, but I didn't identify. I didn't see them as like regular humans, regular people for all intents and purposes. And so once I got out and I met women that, and men, it was mostly women because of this group that I was part of, but men as well, that were doing these things, and they were in the same room, and I could just have a regular conversation, not even about real estate, right? About wine, or about, what their kids were doing in sports, or whatever the case may be. And it broke that mold of that limiting belief of, I don't see myself in that position, because then I thought, oh, if they can do it, I definitely can do it as well, right? It was very inspiring to be in that space. So I would say put yourself in the spaces with the people that you want to be, later on, and put in the effort, volunteer, help the organization add value in some way.
Great advice. That's great advice. And I think people should definitely listen to that or rewind 60 seconds and listen again. There's some good stuff in there. And listen, before we wind up, any kind of good books you can recommend, or maybe some software tools you recommend for people that want to, improve their efficiency or improve their ability to get things done?
Yeah, I would say the power of habit is a big one for me. That was a huge, made a huge mental shift in terms of, how I saw my decision making process, because it breaks down how you make decisions. And if you change one step in that decision process, then, you can change habits, right, that have been ingrained for years and years. So that, I would say, is a very powerful book. And in terms of systems, there's a few that have helped us out a lot. And you mean about CRMs or that,
Yeah.
right? Okay, perfect. So the CRM that we use is HubSpot. There's a
Okay.
paid version and there's a free version. The free version, you can do so much on it. You can, tag, you can create different fields, you can send out marketing emails and information through there. You can link it to Gmail, and there's a lot of capabilities that are there for free if you're starting out and there's no funds to be able to invest into a stronger CRM system. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the one that we're still using even now. And then Calendly, I would say, has been a huge shift for us just in terms of
Yeah.
managing our calendar. I know it sounds so basic, but at the beginning, a year ago, we were spending so much time figuring out, okay, what's your availability? What's mine? And so now with, working together, right, with Luke and myself, we have the podcast, we have other kinds of appointments, and we just don't have to think about it. It's just send a link and it, automates everything from scheduling, right, to also the follow-ups and information you want people to see. So I would say those two in terms of a CRM, and then in terms of marketing, I'll end with having the podcast. If
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about it, for us, it's just been such an amazing platform to be able to add value to the audience and also to our guests, right? Provide a platform for them to spread their message. And there's just been so much that we've gained that we never expected, right? Our focus and our passion was providing education for others, about multifamily real estate, and it's really transformed into now, us being asked, right, to be on other podcasts and come on to different conferences and have speaking gigs. We never expected that. It's been a blessing, and so fun to be able to do that now. But just establishing yourself within a thought leadership platform of some sort.
Awesome. I'm a big fan of Calendly as well. I have to say it's terrific for scheduling my calendar and my calls and my podcasts. It's a great piece of software. And so, okay, really enjoyed this, Daisy. This is a lot of really good stuff. It sounds like you're still only at like the beginning of a really exciting journey, and you've accomplished a tremendous amount in the last 3 years since you started passively investing in that 400 and whatever unit, and now you're buying your own properties and researching new ones and moving to Texas to set up your new base. And it sounds like the next 3 years are going to be very eventful, and I congratulate you on your progress so far.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for having me on. It's been awesome just, sharing my experience, and hope that this adds a little bit of value to your listeners.
I'm sure it will. And finally, so how can people learn more about you? Do you have a website, or what's the name of your podcast again?
Yeah, it's makeitraincapital.com. And there you can find the podcast, our emails, our contact information, our Instagram. We're very active on there. So yeah, there you can find all of it, makeitraincapital.com.
Cool. I'll put all that in the show notes. Thanks again, Daisy Serrano. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Colin. Have a good one.
There you go, folks. That was show 50 with Daisy Serrano. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. I certainly did. Yeah, quite an inspiring story, and just a reminder in case anybody needed one that you don't need to come from money, you don't need to come from an entrepreneurial background or come from lots of real estate experts, or be in some privileged demographic. You can really design your own life whatever way you want if you're willing to put in the work and you have a plan and you have a spouse that's on board. You can really put whatever life-changing possibilities that you want in front of you, particularly in this country, particularly in America, but not only America. People are doing it all over the world. And I just love what she did, that she was on that hamster wheel in California, a very expensive place to live. I believe she was in the suburb of Los Angeles, and now she is in Austin, Texas, and building a brand new business and starting a new life. And she's a tremendous networker, networking with lots of other people with a particular focus on learning and helping millennials and women in real estate. And it's just fantastic. She seems to have come a long way in 3 years, and I'll be very keen to see where she is in the next 3 years. I suspect she'll have many hundreds of units under management as a general partner, and a large following who appreciate what she's done and learn from her as she's learned from people and continues to learn from people. So good, kind of inspiring story, and I hope it helps you to take some decisions and on your own life that you might have been afraid to do. Don't be afraid of doing it. If you've thought it through and decided that this is what you want, and decided that this is a good move for you and your family, don't hesitate too long. There comes a time when you just have to take that plunge and stop hesitating. But other than that, thanks as always for tuning into these podcasts. I hope you're enjoying them. Do leave a rating or a review if you can. I'd really appreciate it. And don't forget that there are other resources on my website, colinvestments.com, where you can read reports that I've written, or you can watch other videos or other podcasts, or schedule a call with me. There's a bunch of different stuff in there. I'm also on social media, and you'll find those links on the website as well. And that's pretty much it from me today. I'll be back very soon with show 51. But until then, this is Colin G. Murphy signing out. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.